Hello guys, my name is Hugo. I already posted a video how to shoot real estate, and if you haven't seen it, click here. So I had lots of requests to show my post-production workflow. So I'm just gonna show you the way I do that. And probably for many of you it won't be ideal since I use Davinci Resolve and many of you probably work in Premiere or Final Cut. I used to edit my real estate projects in Final Cut and I still do sometimes, but pretty much all my last projects I've processed in Davinci, simply because no matter where I edit, I end up in Davinci Resolve for coloring anyways. So let's get to it. Let's import the footage. If your project is set to a different frame rate than your footage, which most likely it'll be, it's gonna ask you to change it. Decline that request. I usually keep my frame rate project at 24 frames per second. Once we imported the footage to our media pool, I'd like to change some properties of my clips. I like to shoot real estate in 60 FPS, this way all my camera movements will be smoother. But many cameras, including my Canon C200, can't record 60 FPS already converted to project frame rate that usually is 24 FPS. Traditionally, we just slow the clips down on timeline manually, clip by clip, and it's kind of frustrating. But in Davinci Resolve, we can actually convert all clips to whatever frame rate we want. As you can see here, they are all 60 FPS. So we select all the clips and we click on Properties, where we can choose our needed 24 FPS. Boom! Now all our clips is gonna be playing back in slow motion as we intended. Now we can move on to Edit tab. Now we have to go through all the clips we shot and choose best moments. What I miss the most in Davinci Resolve coming from Final Cut is Favorites. Favorites is an amazing tool that helps me organize my footage quickly and painless. But there is a way around. Basically, I watch all my footage and choose in and out points on each clip by clicking on I key for in and O key for out. And on the preview window, I can create a subclip by clicking on Create Subclip. Now in the gallery we have this selected clip right here. Now we just need to assign a color to this clip. I'll go with purple. Now we can see this little purple dot right there, and that's how you can defer selected clip from the others. So let's choose all our favorite moments. Once we've gone through all the clips, now we can choose them in the gallery and create a bin with them. This way, when everything is organized and you just have to deal with the good takes, it'll be so much easier to put up everything together and make changes or replacements if needed. Once everything on timeline, we can just trim it all until it looks good accordingly to the music. If at some point you want to extend your subclip and it doesn't let you do on the timeline, you need to click on Edit Subclip and choose that. Now you're not gonna be limited by in and out points. When I edit real estate videos, I usually use dissolve transitions, simply because this way the video flows and it doesn't distract much. Remember that the purpose of the video is to show the house, and you have to balance how much time you're gonna show each room, so it's enough time to view and not too long to get bored. Sometimes I use just straight cuts with no transitions when the music is more dynamic, or when it's a short clip, or simply when it just feels right. But there is no right or wrong. You can mix up cuts with dissolves as long as it looks seamless. At the end, it's better if your video is not gonna be longer than 3 minutes, otherwise it's gonna be too long and no one's gonna watch it until the end. I found that about 2 minutes 40 seconds is ideal timing for a real estate video. Once we finalize our edit, we can move to Color tab. Most likely you shot your footage in log, and if you didn't, it's a good idea to start doing this. Our task is to preserve the dynamic range, because We don't want our windows to be blown up, mostly when you have a view. That's why ideally to use a camera with the most dynamic range possible, that could shoot in RAW, which adds you more flexibility to play with exposure and white balance. If your camera can't shoot in RAW, you have to make sure your white balance is on point when you shoot interiors, otherwise you'll have a hard time making your white balance right. So I start with adding contrast and saturation. Of course you could use a lot, but lately I prefer to do it manually, since this way I have more control of preserving highlights and shadow details. I usually work with color wheels, but you can do it also with the curves if you'd like it. And once we set our image to the way we like, we can copy the preset and use it to similar shots. Once we get to interiors, besides doing the previous steps, we got to do a few more steps. We need to remember that color accuracy in real estate is critical, unlike it's in movie where the look can be greatly differ from reality. In real estate, if they have the gray wall, it has to remain the gray on the video, and if we have white walls, they have to stay white. And digital cameras tend to add color cards, usually yellow tint, which would be absolutely fine for any other projects, but here we have to clean it, mostly when white balance isn't right. For years of working with realtors, I know that almost all of them like white walls and they hate yellow walls. Usually I just go to curves where I choose hue to saturation, I select the color of the walls and pull it down in order to desaturate it. This way we can get closer to needed white walls. But this is applied only for those cases when we actually have white walls. If you have, for instance, blue wall, you probably just need to play with hue only, if needed to do that at all. Going back to exposure, most cameras can capture the dynamic range the way we can see with our eyes. We can see outside and inside at the same time. You need to know the limits of your camera. And when you have a property with a view that you need to capture, you probably will need to compromise by setting exposure more to outside view or more towards the interior. Because even cameras like my C200 with 15 stops of dynamic range sometimes can't handle such difficult task. I'd say you should rather set your exposure to interior and just shoot an extra close-up shot of you from the window and cut it together to show the view, unless realtor wants to show the view from inside, despite the interior to be dark. You can ask your realtor about the priorities or simply shoot it both ways, so in case it's requested, you can offer options. But for those realtors who demanded on having the shots to be like we see with our eyes, you can watch the tip on my video how to shoot real estate video by this link. Once the video is done and ready to be exported, we go to Delivery tab, where we choose our settings for the render. I just advise to export it in MP4, simply because some realtors are old school and use only Windows, and they don't know how to install any plugins, so MP4 is the most cross-platform file format that will be played on both Mac and Windows, and the realtors won't get back to you with complaints that they can't preview the file. And by the way, by default, no matter what resolution your footage, Davinci creates a 1090 timeline, and I'd say to keep it this way, even if your footage was shot in 4K or higher. Keep it this way all the way up to the point when you need to export it. It'll help your computer to process your files faster. Once you're done and you're ready to export it, you can change it to your source resolution and choose whatever exporting file resolution you want. That's pretty much it. Let me know if you have any questions. I hope this information was useful for you. Thank you for your time. Bye.